Today, we are very lucky to have with us Frédéric Faye from Château Figeac, which is a first growth estate on the right bank in Saint-Émilion.
So thank you very much for organizing this Instagram live first of all. So I'm Frédéric Faye. I'm the general manager and winemaker of Château Figeac. I've been working there for 19 years now. I started as a trainee. I love to say that the first day I cleaned the window, and then until I passed all my level until engineer, etc., enologist. And I've been promoted as vineyard manager in 2008, as technical director in 2010, and in 2013, the family Manoncourt asked me to become the general manager and head winemaker at Figeac. So I said yes, of course. Yes.
That's a good choice.
But I know really well Figeac. I love this estate, and we will talk about the uniqueness of Figeac and what we do at the moment. And so that's great. It's a lovely place. So maybe can I say a few words on Château Figeac now?
Of course.
It's a very well-known estate. The name, everybody knows a little bit the name. Château Figeac, Saint-Émilion, right bank, first classified growth, of course. But the history starts a long time ago with during the second century, so a long time ago. And Figeac was a very huge estate and very important estate on the right bank. The family Manoncourt, it's a family estate they bought in 1892. And it's still a family estate, and the family is really involved in the management and all in the most important decision in the estate. So the uniqueness comes also from the terroir. Terroir is a very important notion, as everybody knows. Figeac, the soil is different. Saint-Émilion is very well known for the clay and limestone soil, with a majority of Merlot and a few quantity of Cabernet Franc. And the appellation is 5,400 hectares here in Saint-Émilion. But in this area, you will find a little place with gravel, pebbles, only 60 hectares, we share with our neighbor Cheval Blanc. And we have, on the soil, we have gravel, we have 3 hills of pure gravel, and in the subsoil, we have blue clay. So it allowed us to have different proportion of grape varieties, and especially the Cabernet Sauvignon. Figeac in the vineyard, it's to be very easy. It's 1/3 Merlot, 1/3 Cabernet Franc, and 1/3 Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is not very often used on the right bank in Saint-Émilion because we are in the countryside, and it's a very cold place. The spring is a little bit cold, and Cabernet Sauvignon, because it's a late variety, needs to wake up earlier with warming soil. Clay is not a warming soil, and so the gravel, the pebbles, which is a warming soil, allowed us to have this Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is, everybody knows that, is more from the left bank, and Pessac-Léognan and Médoc, because they are close to the ocean. But thanks to our soil, we are able to have a very good ripeness with Cabernet Sauvignon, and Mr. Manoncourt felt this potential and increased the Cabernet Sauvignon proportion just after the Second World War. So that's a part of the uniqueness of Figeac. And in terms of style, Château Figeac is a very, as many people say, a classic Bordeaux wine, but so different because we have the charming effect of the Merlot, the fat, the charming Merlot, then we have the elegancy of Cabernet Franc, and we have the structure and the minerality of Cabernet Sauvignon in the wine. And it's maybe when you taste blind Figeac, you say, "Oh, this wine is lovely," but is it the right bank? Is it the left bank? No. When you don't know, maybe try Figeac. It could work. It could work. So, voilà, very, very quickly, here is the definition of Figeac.
Yeah, you jumped right into the unique aspect of Château Figeac. For some, it's known as the left bank of the right bank because of that proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, and 2/3 of Cab and 2/3 of Cabernet. And what happened here on the map? We are not in the center of the appellation. We are at the gate of Pomerol, when I check the weather forecast, for instance, it's never Saint-Émilion. I always check Pomerol. From my window, I can see Petrus, I can see La Conseillante, I can see Évangile. We are
Nice
really
neighbors.
close to yeah, really Cheval Blanc, etc. Yeah, we have lovely neighbors and very good friends, of course, with unique wines too. So it's a really special place in Saint-Émilion, and we have 41 hectares of vine. The area of the vineyard is 41 hectares in one block with a lot of plots inside, of course. And with this topography, it's a kind of mosaic, you know, of different weather conditions, different sun exposure. And it allowed me to, when I blend Figeac with my team, it allowed me to, you know, to have these choices, a large choice of wines, to have complexity and identity in the wine. So 41 hectares is quite large for Saint-Émilion. The average size is maybe 12, 13 hectares here. And Pomerol is 4 hectares, I would say.
Right.
So it's very small appellation and very little estate. And yes, it's very special location. And the other part of the estate is lake, forest, a lot of biodiversity here. And it's very important to maintain that. Even if we could plant everything at Figeac, the Manoncourt family and of course the team, want to maintain this biodiversity because it's a very important support for the vineyard and for the balance of the vineyard and the biodiversity in Figeac. So it's a very special place.
Definitely. For those of you who have a little bit of a hard time seeing, I know the map's a little small, but on the Instagram, it's about as good as we can do. But if you see in the Saint-Émilion appellation in the top left, there's number 2 and number 8. So number 8 is Château Figeac, and number 2 is Cheval Blanc that Frédéric was talking about.
Why we are number 8 and they are number 2?
I don't know.
No, this map is really interesting.
But as you can see, it makes sense that stylistically, you know, the terroir is different and stylistically it's different because you're really, like you said, on the edge of the Pomerol appellation. You're not in the center where you see all the other estates, Beau Séjour, Bécot, Pavie, Gaffelière, etc.
Exactly, ozone, etc. And so the soil, it's warming soil, very important filtering power. And it gives to a kind of, yes, I said minerality to the wine, a kind of graphite effect on the tannins and a lot of flavors, aromas, different aromas than the other. It's not a heavy wine. It's not big and huge and too strong. It's a lot of things that talk to you, a lot of flavors when you smell Figeac, even young in the youth. Huh? It's a very special wine. Very Bordeaux, but very Figeac.
Very Bordeaux, but very Figeac. I like that. Let's back up a little bit. And can you tell us, you had mentioned to us that the estate dates back just a few centuries. Can you tell us a little bit about a brief history and the Manoncourt family, who's been at the helm for quite a few years now?
Yeah, so I said, yes, the story starts around the 2nd century, and since this moment, the vine has been planted here. After Figeac was larger than today, until the 15th, 16th century, Figeac was a very, very huge and large estate, around 200 hectares. But before the family Manoncourt bought in 1892, many plots were sold around us. That gave to some estates, it's more sandy parts. That gave new estate arrived with a part of the name Figeac, but the main ground stayed here. And the Manoncourt family bought in 1892, and a very important person was Mr. Thierry Manoncourt. Maybe some of you met him, and I was lucky. I had the chance to work with him a few years and to have discussion about his vision of wine as of the terroir of Figeac. And this Mr. Manoncourt was an agronomist engineer more than being the owner. So he was a scientist, and he started experimenting many things in the winery, in a temperature control system, in malolactic control. He was one of the first estate to manage and to to be able to control the malolactic fermentation here with Professor Émile Pénaud, who came a lot to Figeac to understand with Mr. Manoncourt this second fermentation of red wine, natural fermentation, and experimenting a lot of organic manure, something like that. So he was more than being the owner, he was a scientist. So that's why, and very good taster. So that's why he built the DNA of what Figeac is today, and he felt the potential of the ground. And more than being that, he was a so charming man and elegant man. He worked a lot for Saint-Émilion appellation. He was Premier Jura. You know, we have a kind of group, and the name the Jurade, and he was during more than 20 years Premier Jura, as we say. So in terms of promotion, in terms he promoted a lot the appellation, and he was a founder also of Union des Grands Crus de Bordeaux. He started traveling very early with some friends of Bordeaux because they are really open-minded, and they started traveling in the 60s, in the 70s, all around the world, promoting not only Figeac but Bordeaux wines. There were 5 people, and then it was the beginning of Union des Grands Crus, and today Union des Grands Crus is more than 100 and etc. estates. So yeah, wow. Promoting great wine. And I said they are, Mr. Manoncourt and the family Manoncourt is really open-minded. It means they are friends all over the world and winemakers. So when we travel, when they welcome people, they are not only winemakers or owners from Bordeaux. They are not only French winemaker or French owners, you know, of estates of winemaking. They are friends all over the world. And that's why and we will talk about the new winery in a few minutes, but when we rebuilt the new cellar, the new winery, a special room is dedicated for exchanging, you know, bottles from estates to estates, and not only Bordeaux and not only French wine, only great wines. So and we love drinking other wines too, because there is not only Figeac in our life. So we love it. We love Figeac. We are big fans of Figeac, but we love drinking and not only tasting. We love sharing wines, and this is the philosophy of the estate. That's
the whole point, yes. So speaking about
sorry, just to finish, today, Madame Manoncourt, his wife, is managing the estate with her daughters, really involved in the company, in the estates, and it's a really good combination with the team, with a very good communication, and everybody wants to make better and better in terms of promotion, winemaking, etc. So it's a really good combination together.
The ladies are at the helm. We love that.
Yes, and they decided not to have a lady in general manager. Sorry, but that's okay. The balance.
We'll still accept you.
Thank you.
So speaking about being more forward-thinking, Petit Figeac is the second wine at the estate, and if I'm not mistaken, it was definitely among one of the first. It wasn't called that at the time, exactly. But it was one of the first second wine. So was that Monsieur Manoncourt's idea? Of course.
It was Mr. Manoncourt's idea. In 1945, he decided to produce the second label of the right bank, and I think the third or the fourth in Bordeaux, to have selection. First of all, it was to have selection, to increase the quality of Grand Vin, Château Figeac, and to produce a second label named in the past Grange Neuve de Figeac. Okay. Grange Neuve de Figeac, it was the name until the vintage 2012. And it was produced with young vines, or, you know, I don't want to say with the leftovers, but something like that. And with the family, and we decided in 2012 to change the name to Petit Figeac. It's more easy. The link is very easy to understand between Figeac and Petit Figeac. And we decided to change the winemaking. This is a real introduction today to the style of Figeac with the 3 grape varieties, but this is a lighter vision and lighter wine, which is able to be drinkable earlier than Figeac. So, and it's not only young vines, it's not the leftovers. I built at the same time the 2 blend, And you have old vines, young vines inside, and sometimes you have portions of Figeac or vats or lots of wine which are producing Figeac into the blend of Petit Figeac to have a very important link between the two wines. And we produce around 40,000 to 60,000 bottles. I don't have the pressure of volume on Figeac and Petit Figeac. And I'm able to sometimes not to blend some wine and to sell them in bulk as in Saint-Émilion appellation. But I don't want to produce a third label, first of all. And we will produce every vintage the Petit Figeac, even if we could produce 100% of the volume in Figeac. But we want, with the family, to release every vintage the Petit Figeac. Very good introduction to the style. Lower price for new generation wants to be introduced, you know, to the style of the winery. And yes, it works really well today. It works really well.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't had the chance to try Château Figeac, which I highly encourage you to do, it's one of my personal favorites. Definitely Petit Figeac in an outstanding vintage, like 15, like 16. It's a great way to get into the style. We have some 15, we have some 16 coming in. So I highly recommend, if you get a chance, to try Petit Figeac and then eventually Château Figeac, of course.
It's a serious second label, and I repeat, not built with the leftovers. Right? It's a serious second label. Wow.
Now,
and the label, sorry, I can say a few words
yeah,
on the label
sure.
of Petit Figeac and Figeac. The label of Château Figeac is very unique too. It's kind of Art Deco style. You can recognize the bottle far from the bottle, you know, 100 meters far from the bottle, you can recognize it. And the family Manoncourt drew this label at the beginning of the 20th century, but they drew this label. And for Petit Figeac, they drew the label too, to have a very unique label for both wines, for the two wines. And yeah, it's quite special Art Deco style, intemporel, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of chateaux in Bordeaux have the chateau on the label, so this is already unique in that
and
sense.
Sometimes they have a chateau and they don't have the chateau. In fact,
that's
you know,
true.
really,
That's true. They also
but we have a lovely chateau and a lovely place. But the family preferred, you know, to do a special label, and I said a kind of Art Deco label. Voilà. It's quite unique too.
Well, speaking of beautiful estate, last time I was at Figeac for Primeur, you guys were in full renovation mode, and now you are finished. So tell us a little bit about what happened at Château Figeac, what was changed, and how that's going to impact the future wine.
What happened? Alors, what happened? 6 years ago. I said and we talked with the family Manoncourt, and I said, the old cellar, we can't work with precision now, and the work for workers is very difficult and sometimes dangerous to work in this old cellar. And because I replanted, we renovated about 35% of the vineyard, and we have very good precision and very good, we know everything in the vineyard. And all the precision we have in the vineyard, of course, we need to translate this precision into a new cellar. It means we need more vats, smaller one, you know, with better temperature control, humidity control, etc. So first we talk about process. And then the family Manoncourt decided to rebuild everything in terms of process and winery. And then the family decided to renovate and build new office, new reception room, because historically Figeac welcomed a lot of people and some famous people, special guests, VIP guests. And we started 3 years ago for this very big project. We used to have 1,600 quarter meters. We now built 5,500. So you can imagine how we increased. We increase a lot the space for process, reception, and all the office. And 2/3 of the winery are underground. That's very important. So it's very discreet, because I said we have a lovely chateau from Renaissance, etc. And so they didn't want, first of all, they wanted to stay to at the close to the chateau, close to the family. The family, part of the family lives on the estate. It's a real family estate, right. I repeat. And so 2/3 were underground, are underground now. It was Hopla, sorry, come on. Wow, what happened? My assistant is checking the camera. Thank you, Alexa. And we used to have 25 vats. Now we have 40, more than 40. And so, yes, we added a research and development cellar too, because we are very close to University of Bordeaux, Dijon. We are really open-minded in terms of research. We just integrated a group for working on viticulture science. It's an international group. And so we have all this vision, and with a natural light, etc. inside. It's more than being a very efficient cellar. It's also a lovely and beautiful cellar. So the architect did a really great job. Mr. Guy Tropré and Madame Caroline Marly from the A3A, they are from Bordeaux and very, very professional. So I say they totally felt what we need. And so after 3 years of construction, renovation, we have I have a new toy, something like that, I can say. And I look forward to playing on it, with it. So it's a very special place. And well, I say, and to welcoming people. We look forward to welcoming everybody and to share great moments, emotion, and to share our passion for this vineyard. So it was a big invest for a family, of course. It's a big invest. It's only a family business. Of course, it's Figeac, but it's a family business. So it was a big invest, but very well controlled in terms of investments, and a lot of technology inside, but everything is hidden. Voilà. So
well,
it's
I can't wait
place.
to see I can't wait to see the new cellars. I've been there, previous to all the renovations, but it looks beautiful.
We just started. We could not do the inauguration at the moment, because unfortunately, due to regarding to the context, the COVID context, and some of Bordeaux negotiants already visited. We started to welcome people 2 weeks ago, and they say, wow, it's still Figeac, but it's so well integrated, and it's modern inside, and it's.
Let's switch gears here briefly before time runs out and speak a little bit about the classification of Saint-Émilion that I know you guys have been working on. For those of you who are a little bit lost on the classifications in Bordeaux, Saint-Émilion has its own classification that's separate from the 1855 classification.
Exactly.
And it's something that's renewed every 10 years. So Figeac is a first growth classé B, and are working to be, I would assume, premier grand cru classé A. So can you tell us a little bit about what that entails and what that's going to look like for the upcoming revision?
First, you said the very well-known classification is Bordeaux, a part of Pessac-Léognan after, and then Sauternes. You have a very famous estate, and it's 1855. But this classification never moved. Voilà. In Saint-Émilion, they decided, and Mr. Manoncourt was also involved in this decision in the past, to do its own classification. It was 100 years after. It was in 1955. And they decided to create this classification and the duration of this classification is only for 10 years. And each 10 years, each decade, you have to play again the game. You have to prove that your quality, or your management of the estate, your distribution is enough good to be promoted to. Classification Grand Cru classé, then Premier Grand Cru classé, first classified gross, and in this first classified gross, you will have the A level and the B level. Since the beginning, Figeac is first classified gross B. We are today about 14, I think, and you have 4. Today we have 4 classified A, the very well-known Ozone Cheval Blanc since the beginning, and then joined the group with Angelus and Pavie in the last classification, 2012. And the next classification is for 2022. And we, at this moment, we work a lot on the file. It's a very big work, and they check, of course, 15 vintages for the tasting. Donc, what's the best? You have scores for this tasting. You had how you manage the estate, the vineyard, being environmentally friendly, organic. They check although the welcoming. You know, the welcoming, can you welcome people? You have many different points, and the architecture, all the renovation you did. So it's very hard work today, and we have a group. We are not. We are 8 people working on it. It's very long work, and we will. The file should be finished in June 30th. In June 30th, we have to this year, and then they have 1 year for controlling everything, coming to all the estates, and so you will have at the end a new classification in 2022 for the new crop. It will be the decision could be around September, October, but the crop, the vintage 2022 will be with the new classification, and you don't have limit in terms of first classified growth or just classified growth. You don't have limit. I don't know if they, something, you can move. If you are doing something wrong, you can go down, and something very good, you can go up. And but we are really professional on this subject, and the jury will have the final decision, and but we work very hard first for our consumers, and then maybe there is a classification. Yes, Figeac, would be pleased to join a new group. Yeah.
Well,
it's very political. It's very political.
Yes,
my
I know. Best of luck getting that together. I know you guys have been working hard on it, and it certainly shows in the quality of the wines that have, been outstanding, especially the past few vintages.
If this classification is renovated, if you have a new classification each decade, it means it's a classification for the consumer, because you have to prove every 10 years that you are able to be at the top level. So it's very dynamic. It gives a good dynamic to the appellation Saint-Émilion. I think so. Definitely. It's positive, in my opinion. But it's very big work.
I'm sure. Before we sign off here, I just want to ask you about the new vintage that is about to be released. So for those of you who are aware of the Bordeaux Futures campaign, it's just starting now with a few releases coming out, but we haven't had any of the bulk of the big producers come out yet with the 2020 release. Can you tell us a little bit about this vintage? I've been reading a little bit that it seems to be a Merlot vintage and a right bank vintage. What do you have to say about 2020 for Figeac? What can we expect?
Is it a Merlot vintage? Maybe all the main critics didn't taste yet at the moment. They didn't taste yet the Figeac with Cabernet, and it's a very exceptional year for Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon at the estate. But Figeac is so unique that but we use Merlot, 37% Merlot, because of course Merlot is really charming this year. So 2020, I would say it continues. We will talk about a trilogy of 18, 19, 20 today. Weather, we had a different weather condition, a very rainy and wet spring. It was really difficult to work in the vineyard at the beginning. Fortunately, the flowering was great in June, and after the summer arrived, and it was very dry, very sunny, but the temperature was hot, but we had cold nights, so the ripeness was really, really good. Early vintage, we started harvesting at Figeac very early, one of the most earliest vintage we ever produced. We started it on the 4th of September, and we finished 5 weeks after. So we took the time of picking all the plots or intra-plots al dente, working on the freshness of flavors because we want to maintain the freshness. The bunches, it was so rich in terms of tannins, really fine tannins, but very important in the bunches. So the key, in my opinion, was a very gentle extraction, more infusion than extraction into the wine to maintain a balanced wine. And today the wine is, Figeac is 37% Merlot, 32% Cabernet Franc, and 31% Cabernet Sauvignon, the blend. And you have this charming attack with the Merlot, with a lovely fat and red fruits effect, and then you have the elegancy of Cabernet Franc and the finish with Cabernet Sauvignon minerality texture, but not too much. Everything is balanced at the right place, and I repeat, this, on my opinion, it's a really lovely trilogy, 18, 19, 20, and the wine will be released not soon, in June.
Come on, give us a date.
No, we can't say. The market just starts now, and you know, in Bordeaux, you have this kind, except last year, regarding to the context, you will start with Cru Bourgeois, Cru Classé, and then step by step, you go to the big brand until the first classified grows from Médoc, from here, and we will release at the end of the campaign. Just wait for the market, just to let the other chateau release the wine and take the time to work on it. And of course, we will release it with we are listening to the market, so we will release with a very interesting price for consumers. And each vintage we released in the past, they did a good thing because if they bought about 20% or 30% less than the bottle, the price of the bottle in the market when the bottle is physically on the market after. Yeah, and our decision is to. And the decision of the family Manoncourt is to put the majority of the crop on the market. We put 90% of the crop on the market. We play the en-primeur game. And last year, it was a big success too. And yes, and after the release, 45 countries bought Château Figeac. And so it's, this is the answer. 45 countries bought Château Figeac and until the consumer. So it's our way to work, and it works well. So yes, have a look on the release of Château Figeac and on the great wines of this vintage.
We're waiting for it.
It's always interesting. Yeah, it's always interesting. It's always interesting. Primeur is working on it, or working for us. So
good.
And you will have a bottle to taste.
Yes, I can't wait to taste it.
You will taste it. I send you a bottle by plane. Yeah.
Perfect. We have one last question before we sign off. Someone was asking about the frost that hit Bordeaux the past few weeks ago. How did that impact you guys at Château Figeac, or were you okay?
Yeah, on all the region, we light candles. We had to light candles. It was -5, -4 Celsius, so it was very, very cold. And we had to be there during the night. It was not a frost on the early morning. No, it was during the night at 2 a.m. and we had to light candles during 6-7 hours, and all the region had to do that. So more and more we have this kind of weather problems. I think even in 2020 we had it. Even it's a very late frost. But we are safe. We don't have any damage, but we had to light candles. It's like that. I have friends in other regions, Chablis, Burgundy. You have Châteauneuf-du-Pape affected, all the France, and some North Italian wines too, wineries. So I have friends over there too, and they've been affected. So it was on part of Europe very cold mass, very, very cold air. And arriving from the North Pole, and bim. So it's always a big problem, and all the appellation is working on new system now. for protecting everybody. So we are still working on it for all the appellation. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
it's like that.
Well, we're glad that you weren't, well, you were impacted, but luckily you were able, sounds like you were able to save the vineyards. I know there were some long nights there, so.
Yeah. So, but now, finger crossed, we have a hailstorm now, we will have some.
No.
And respecting the nature is very important here, and for many of my friends in other wineries, so it's very important. So let's see what happened in 2021. It's still on the vineyard. They are babies. The bunches are not flowered yet, and they are babies. So let's see. Finger crossed.
Exactly. Fingers crossed. Well, Frédéric, I think that's about all our time today. Went over a little bit, but it was so lovely speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's a bit of a busy time right now. To present
thank you very much, and yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure because we can't travel at the moment. Look forward to visiting you, to welcoming you, and thank you for listening my Franglish. I love it.
It was perfect. For those of you who weren't here at the beginning, just a reminder that our next Instagram Live will be on May 20th, always on a Thursday at 1 p.m. My coworker, David Hunter, will be hosting Bella Vista from Franciacorta. So thank you again so much, Frédéric.
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
luck with the En Primeur campagne, and we hope to see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.